I'm joined here this morning by Matt Purol from ARMC. Good morning.
Morning.
So I know that you're doing, there's a concussion seminar coming up this week, correct?
Correct.
And you're the speaker. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a little bit of background about that?
Yeah, it's Thursday night at Northern Lights Arena. Starts at 6 p.m., goes to about 8 p.m. There's going to be kind of a question and answer table along with a full presentation that I have. Basically, it kind of started, there's a lot of new legislation and a lot of publicity about concussions these days with the issues that are going on with the NFL and these guys getting Alzheimer's and things like that down the road, and just the long-term effects. And it's a relatively new injury because in the last 10 to 15 years, concussions have really come to a head because, as with healthcare and anything, as we get more research and we do it more, it gets better and we learn more about it, so we understand the injury better. So it was just an opportunity, I felt, to really educate the community and really kind of clear up a lot of confusion because you hear a lot of different things about concussions in the news. So I kind of wanted to hit that in the head and be able to explain it to the public and have them get a chance to ask questions that they have by someone who has experience with concussions.
And so it seems like concussions, getting them younger and stuff, they're saying it can cause Alzheimer's or even more serious things in the future?
It can. Not all concussions have long-term serious effects. It just depends on the person. But I mean, it's not one of those where, if you have 3 or 4, then you get long-term effects. Some people do have long-term effects from one. That's pretty rare, but it's more to be on the safe side and be on the preventative side, so that way to reduce the risk of a child sustaining these long-term effects.
And I know you work with a lot of high schools in the area, is that correct?
Yeah, I work with Alpena High School, yep.
And do you guys experience a lot of concussions when you work with them?
Yes, as an athletic trainer, we are often the first ones on the sidelines assessing concussions. The majority of our schooling is dedicated to concussion management. So yeah, I see a lot of them most commonly in football and hockey. I do see some in soccer. But anybody that plays a contact sport is at risk for a concussion, whether it be softball or volleyball. I've seen them in just about any sport you can imagine. So that's kind of one of the things I really want to get out there too, is how professionally trained athletic trainers are in the management of concussions.
And so you guys know exactly, you go to school to know how to deal with this specifically, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And so it seems like a lot of sports are the ones who encounter concussions, but are there other areas or other things that you guys work with that you get concussions, maybe car wrecks or anything other?
Oh, absolutely. Prior to coming up here, I worked at Detroit Metro Airport for Delta Airlines, and I saw guys that got concussions that were through luggage bags or had slips, trips, and falls. Anytime anybody sustains a blow to the head, there's that risk of a concussion. So it's not limited just to sports and athletic activity. I've seen it in people that your weekend warriors, people that slip and fall and hit their head on the floor, car accidents, guys work at the airport, they bump their head on the aircraft when they're in the bins, things like that. So it's not just athletes that are at risk, but that's just the most common setting in which you see them. So
the main thing. And I'm sure a lot of parents and community would love to come to this event and have a lot of questions for their children who probably play sports and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely encourage parents to come, especially those parents that are a little bit confused. And the Michigan High School Athletic Association has rules in place about concussions, but so does the state of Michigan, and actually every state in the country has legislation in place about concussions, and that's recently come about probably in the last 5 years or so that every state has gotten legislature, which is a good thing because that means it's becoming more publicized and people are taking it more seriously. And it used to be, you'll be fine, just toughen up and things like that. Well, it's not really the case anymore. I mean, there is still some of those, a fine line to walk there when looking at a kid with a concussion. That's why it's really important to have a healthcare professional that's trained in the management of concussions for your children. I mean, I think that's one of the most important things that we can do is invest in the children and invest in keeping them safe and still keeping sports fun and everything like that.
And so what are some tips you could give to the public to prevent these concussions, especially if the kids play sports?
The hard thing about concussions is there's no 100% preventable way. The best thing you can do is recognize them early. You don't have to be 100% trained and know exactly all the ins and outs of a concussion, but no. Basically, I tell parents, okay, if your child's not acting right and they got hit pretty hard and they just seem a little off, I always, Center for Disease Control has this, when in doubt, sit them out. So if you kind of sustain something's a little bit, okay, something's not right here, pull them out of competition and then get them evaluated by someone that's trained in concussion management. Also, teaching proper technique, especially in football, hitting with your head up, not using your head as a battering ram, things like that is just some little tips you can do to help reduce the risk. But unfortunately, there's no 100% preventable way. It's not like, okay, I can put a brace on it and you won't sustain a concussion, or anything like that. There are different types of headgear and stuff that they've been experimenting with to help reduce the risk. But as long as children and people are playing contact sports, there's always going to be that risk.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Matt, for coming and sharing this with us today. And I know people in the community probably want to make their way out to ARMC, and it's this Thursday, correct?
Yep, it's actually being held at Northern Lights Arena in the evening. Yep.
Okay. So Northern Lights Arena, and I'm sorry, what is the time again?
6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
6 p.m. to 8 p.m. All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.